Hey everyone, welcome back to Great Sports Debates. I wanted to get a quick jump on Week 7 power rankings, get everything out to you guys early this week. So, haven't seen the Sunday night or Monday night game yet. However, I think we got enough information to get a good estimate on where we stand. So with that, let's kick off with the team in the basement, number 32, the New England Patriots. So they took my advice from last week. Drake May is playing now. I didn't see a whole lot of that game. I know they were down to Houston early, but it looks like they did put up some garbage points late. So maybe they're a little better than they were before. Maybe they're not the worst team in the league if Drake May can get it going, but they're definitely going to be in that bottom tier. At 31 is Cleveland. It looked like they showed life in the Eagles game, or at least they kept the score close most of the time. They're 1-5. It sounds like Watson didn't play completely terrible, so maybe they'll keep playing him for a while. But at some point, especially if he continues to revert to just missing passes badly, they're going to have to just bench the guy and see what they have somewhere else, and at least start looking for next year on, do they have any good players on the Browns? Again, we expect a lot from the defense, but there's injuries, and when the offense can't do anything, it's really tough. Maybe moving Nick Chubb makes sense at this point. At 30 is the Tennessee Titans. Maybe they should be a little bit higher. Seems like Will Levis always makes a crucial mistake at the worst time. They're 1-5, so any way you go, the team's just not really that good to begin with. Their skill players are old. They overpaid for a part-time running back. And while they did draft an offensive lineman, they still have problems there. And the fact that you take Levis with a high pick and he makes that many mistakes, they're going to be pretty bad for a while. At 29 is Miami, and maybe that's too high, but they do have 2 wins. This team just doesn't have a lot of bright spots. I think they're still kind of in salary hell even after this terrible offseason. The offensive line can't block. They don't use their running game enough. And, they've been exposed to how bad the team is with Tua's out. Hill's the only playmaker, and no one can get him the ball. And the defense just isn't good enough to overcome how bad the offense has played so far. At 28 is the Raiders. This is another one where people were killing me about they have 2 wins, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? They still have 2 wins. And I'm still not impressed by the Raiders. And I still think the quarterback's bad. I still think the offensive line isn't great. I think the defense is pretty horrible outside of Crosby for the most part. And you can tell when he doesn't play. Adams isn't happy, and he's older. So there's not a lot of bright spots. Again, I didn't like their pick of the tight end, but at least he's good. You don't want that to be your bright spot, to have a pretty good tight end, but that's how it looks like to me for the Raiders. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. All right, at 27 is Jacksonville, and they returned to looking pretty terrible again. So we got them slotted in the 27th spot. They still only have the 1 win where somehow they beat Indy. They had 2 weeks where they looked pretty good, but this offense just cannot generate any kind of rhythm. Lawrence will have his inconsistent spots. He's had a lot of wide receiver drops as well. And the defense doesn't get nearly the pressure that they did just a year ago. At 26 is Carolina. The defense is just bad. Defense is really bad. The offense does look improved with Andy Dalton, but it's not good enough to overcome for how bad the defense is. I think the one bright spot is that they clearly know Bryce Young is not the guy. So I would say time to move on from him and get whatever you can get. And start looking for your players of the future. You're going to be drafting high. At 25 is the Giants, and maybe this is a little low because they played all right. But with Malik Neighbors out, I don't have a lot of trust in them. I don't think that they're going to beat Cincinnati in tonight's game. Cincinnati's also, actually has a worse record. But I just have more confidence in their offense than I do in anything of the Giants. But I could be wrong. Either way, I don't think the Giants are going to be a factor this season. At 24 is another New York team. We have the New York Jets. We got the coach killer, Aaron Rodgers. Some people are saying he doesn't know how to play quarterback all of a sudden. I don't know about that, but it does seem like the offense is predictable. Plus, he's up in age. He's not quite as mobile as he used to be. And he has to do everything his way, which really isn't working. I don't know if he has all the right weapons, but part of that is his own problem, bringing in guys like Lazard that aren't so good but do things the Aaron Rodgers way, and Nathaniel Hackett, who hasn't really been super successful away from Rodgers. So the head coach is gone. We got a good defense, but the offense just isn't generating enough points. I don't think the Jets are going to be a factor this year. This is going to be the decision we'll see Monday night, how they perform against the Bills. I expect them to lose that game.
At 23 is the Rams, and people have been telling me it's too high all year. And they're probably right, and the team has a lot of injuries. I do think Matt Stafford's the top quarterback, and we'll see what happens when they get some of their pieces back. And I think they're finally getting back on the run game part. But again, it's hard when you're out like 3 guards and a couple of tackles, and that just makes it difficult to do things. At 22 is the Bengals. We talked about it last week that if you wanted plus money on them to make the playoffs, this could be your last opportunity. So, assuming they beat the Giants, that might go away at that point right there. And it's not as crazy as you thought. When this was first brought up to me, I'd be like, well, yeah, I would definitely do the minus 150 for them to not make the playoffs. They're 1-5 or 1-4, whatever they are. It's not good. But they have a very soft schedule, and the offense has looked really good lately. We know the defense hasn't played good so far, and there's no reason to think that they're going to be world beaters, but I think they can be better than they've played so far. And Burrow to Chase kind of looks like an unstoppable deal. 21, we got Arizona. Harrison's out, probably going to do concussion protocol. I didn't hear anything. I just assumed that from the hit I saw. Murray's kind of come back down to earth a little bit, so maybe too high on the Cardinals here, but they're just going to kind of be not the worst team, but towards the bottom side. At 20's Denver, still don't like them. Bo Nix is faster than I expected, and he's had some nice runs, but he's just too inconsistent, and he proved that again. I finally gave them the benefit of the doubt after everyone said I've had Denver at the bottom tier all year. Well, you know what? They lost to the Chargers, and it wasn't close. At 19 is the Colts. Kind of a tough team to figure out. They have the offensive line where you expect them to be better, but it's kind of a mess at quarterback. There's too many inconsistent players on that team to trust, so that's one of those middle-of-the-road teams. They have probably a better passing game with Joe Flacco in there, but obviously they lose the dynamic ability not having AR in there. At 18 is the Cowboys. I kind of wanted to put them a little bit lower after they got smoked so bad by Detroit, and they've got smoked a couple of times this year, but we knew going into this game, I told you to look at Lions and look at the over because Dallas had a ton of guys out, so you have to take that into consideration. We know the defense is never really that good, but they do have playmakers that can get interceptions and get sacks that have been out so far this season. The hard part is the Steelers game, they ran the ball a little bit, but again, against Detroit, as expected, they were not able to run. So it kind of makes it tough on the Dak, and the defense gets completely destroyed, and they can't run, and everyone knows you got to pass. So little tough sledding. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and lock them in at number 18. At 17 is the Saints, and this is, again, probably too high. They're 2-4, but they're on a 4-game losing streak. I just see that there is potential. I like Alvin Kamara. He's going to win his over bet that we talked about in the offseason. David Carr was playing pretty good, or Derek Carr, whichever Carr it is. It all blends together at some point. But, Rattler looked okay, not great. I don't know if he's the future answer. Probably not, at least yet. But, the Saints, as long as they're able to run the ball, they're going to do okay in most games because the defense is still pretty solid. At 16 is the Seahawks. They're 3-3. They beat 3 cupcakes earlier in the season. They dropped 3, and they're probably not the 16th best team, but a lot of the teams I've named already aren't good or haven't played well so far. So that's kind of where we have them at. At 15, we got the Eagles. I didn't catch a lot of their game against Cleveland, so not sure why it was so close. They do have A.J. Brown back, and it looks like he won the game from every time I looked up, he was making a spectacular first down or a touchdown catch or a big gain to really win them that game. So he's an important piece. So if they have A.J. Brown back and they can run the ball and the defense kind of figures something out, they should be okay, average to maybe above average. And then you also have to consider who they play. Next up, we got the Chargers. I believe they're 3-2. The offense put up some points on Denver. It is true, I know Surtain left that game early, so that's a factor. But I don't really think the offense is very explosive. They do best on teams that they can run against, and the defense is pretty good. So the Chargers are kind of going to be that middle-of-the-road team. They got some teams to beat up on in their division. Of course, they're going to lose to Kansas City, but they also have Denver and the Raiders to pick on. At 13 is the Steelers. You know, they bit us last week, but they came back and proved themselves, covering again this week. The offense is really bad to watch. Justin Fields always has a couple of throws where it just looks really bad. But for the most part, he can make the short pass. His dual threat ability fits kind of what the team is trying to do. And Najee Harris was able to break a couple of big ones as they beat the Raiders. And again, they're 4-2 and tied for the division lead. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they have a great defense. And I like the way that they call plays. I know most people don't. But you have to kind of fit the skill players you have. And the offense is just not very skilled. At number 12, Chicago. Now this kind of scares me because Chicago's gotten better every week. And if you look at the last 3 weeks, their offense has been really clicking good. And if you think about it, the defense is already rock solid. So this could be a really scary team. We talked about in the off season. It was a team that I said I liked the over, but I wasn't going to bet it because of the division they're in. They're looking really scary right now, but they are in by far the toughest division in football. At 11 is Buffalo. This is a hard team for me to figure out. Haven't got to watch them a lot. They're 3-2. They lost 2 in a row. The game against Baltimore is really ugly. I don't even really remember much of the other game. And I believe they got Monday night game against the Jets that we would assume they would win. If they don't win that game, you know, Baltimore's probably in trouble. Buffalo is probably in trouble. I think that they're going to win their division by default. You know, they're in there with Miami and the Jets and the Patriots. So, pretty soft division. But, like I said, if they can't beat the Jets, then I guess everything's wide open. At 10's the Commanders. I still like the Commanders. I still think I like the Commanders better than most people. I think they still played good against Baltimore. Baltimore's just a tough team to play. And Daniels still looks good. I would go on record and say that they're going to win the NFC East. I know I said it last week, and I haven't looked, but they're probably the favorites in Vegas now to win that division as well. At 9's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, they've scored a lot of points on a lot of teams. They have a legit offense. When they can run the ball, they're really strong because they obviously have great playmakers for Baker to get the ball to. I honestly think they could be higher than this. I think one of the problems was they had a backup tackle in for a while, and they were getting a lot of pass rush on Baker. But the defense is kind of hit or miss. They're usually pretty good against the run. So overall, this is a really solid team, and they're going to be battling out with the Falcons for that division. At number 8's Green Bay. They smoked somebody again this week. I believe it was Arizona this time. They look really good on offense. They got playmakers in defense. They're a really good team. Again, it's just that they are in the toughest division in the National Football League. At number 7, this might be a bit too high, but We told you we liked Atlanta to win 10 games in the offseason, so we're going to stand by that, and they're 4-2 already. I would like the run game. I want to say they got like 200 rushing yards this week, so maybe that's a sign of that starting to pick up. And with Cousins in rhythm now, the offense looks pretty strong, and they've been playing pretty well, and they have enough playmakers on defense to do their part. But like I said, Falcons is another team that's looked better every week, and Cousins is shown to be a key player when it comes down to crunch time. So I got the Falcons at 7 right now. I really like them in most matchups. At 6 is the 49ers. Again, I know how they've played so far. They don't look like the 6th best team, but they're 3-3, and they're just a team I trust. They could just get too many good players on paper for me to not trust them. I'm not going to drop them much lower, unless they're really just losing a lot of games. I'm going to have to see more bad play for me to move the 49ers down, because they have playmakers at every level on both sides of the ball. At number 5, we got the Houston Texans. They are 5-1. We're getting into the top tier teams right now. They haven't covered or played as well as some people expected. They haven't generated the pass rush that I've expected. But CJ is still shown if you give him time to throw the ball, he can do things. And then this is a completely different team when they have Joe Mixon running the ball. And when he's there, they run well. Then they have the good run-pass offense going. And this defense is built to play with a lead. They usually do pretty good from that point. But, their one loss was pretty bad when they got spanked by the Vikings. Speaking of, I know Vikings fans are going to be upset that, hey, 1, they're undefeated, and 2, they dropped down a little bit in a bye week. And I know they're 5-0, but I just think that there's 3 teams that are clearly better than them. So I have to rank them ahead of the Vikings. Sam Darnold looks like he's coming down to earth a bit. If Jones is out for any time, if you saw Ty Chandler run the ball, it's a major downgrade. So that will impact them a lot, because a lot of what they've done well has been able to run the ball, and then Sam Darnold be able to play action. He's playing a lot of these games with the lead because they have a great defense that gets a lot of pressure, and then he has the ultimate safety blanket in Justin Jefferson. So he's in a good spot, but if they're not able to run the ball, I don't know. Next week, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, and that's why I have the Detroit Lions ahead of them at number 3. The Lions have the best offense in football. They just do. Yards-wise, statistically-wise, score-wise might not show that, but they can run the ball as well as anybody, and they can definitely pass the ball. They have playmakers. They have the offensive line. They got J-Mo. They got Patrick as a deep threat. They got St. Brown as a possession guy. Gibbs can catch the ball. He can run inside and outside. And Montgomery's hard to bring down. So the offense has a lot of options. Sometimes they get a little too tricky and mess things up for themselves. But this is an offense that can score with anybody. The defense is the problem. I think the offense is so good it doesn't matter. The part that's going to be tricky with the Lions moving forward is I think Aiden Hutchinson is done for the season. And the defense has relied more on sacks and turnovers to stop drives than actual good defense. The run defense is solid. The addition of DJ Reader, like I said in the offseason, was a big deal that was under the radar. So this is one of the top free agent signings that no one's talking about. 1, the guy doesn't cost that much because he's not a pressure guy. He's a run stuffer. And 2, pairing him with Aleem McNeil, I knew would totally transform their run defense. So the run defense is there. It's going to be being able to generate enough pressure to help the defensive backfield, which are 2 key areas that are both weaknesses for the Lions. So that's what keeps them at the number 3 spot. Getting into the top 2, we got Baltimore. Nobody's been pinging me lately about Baltimore. Baltimore's been one of our top half teams the entire year, even when they're 0-2. As long as they have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I just saw a thing watching that game today. The NFL record, most rushing yards through 5 games with the quarterback rushing duo. It was like almost 1,000 yards. Both of those were prop bets in the offseason that we recommended as well. Derrick Henry was one that we really liked to go over 1,000 yards. He's almost there already. Lamar Jackson was our number 2 offseason pick to go over 660 rushing yards. So those are both virtual locks. And Baltimore against anybody is almost a virtual lock. They're just a tough team to beat. And then at number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't dominated anyone. They haven't crushed anybody. But they have Patrick Mahomes. And no matter what his stats are, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks. He knows how to buy time and look downfield. He has a connection with Kelsey. He can pick up first downs with his legs. And we know he can make every pass in the book. The hard part is who is he going to throw to? But they have a strong interior offensive line, which helps them run the ball. They got Chris Jones and a lot of guys they can swap in to generate a pass rush and have a pretty good run defense. They got top-level guys at linebacker and some studs in the defensive backfield. So they're 5-0. They're favored every game. They're definitely going to win the AFC West. And they got a guy that's just done it before, and he's back-to-back Super Bowl champ. So hard to question Kansas City at number 1. Someone's going to have to be on a really long, impressive streak for us to slide somebody ahead of them. Maybe someone emerges with this upcoming Vikings-Lions game next week. But that's all I have for power rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I always appreciate it if you drop a like and or a comment. And as always, thanks for watching.